and the crowd comes to a hush. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you so much to the CCAT team for all of the efforts in bringing cohort number 3 for the Connecticut Manufacturing Internship Program together. I'm Dr. Jackie Garofano. I have the pleasure of being the Chief Technology Officer here at CCAT, and it's really a dream of mine to be able to have a pseudo fireside chat with a couple of really amazing people. So Tony Cacace to my left is a gentleman that has such an inspiring story and is really, I believe him to be like the godfather of advanced manufacturing, even from the days of, when he was a very young man coming out of, his studies. So I always, have such an admiration for Tony and having such great conversations and learning all the history. So having the word legacy and legend is really how many of us here that know Tony describe him. And equally so to my right is Ari Santiago, who is an incredible person. He has such an amazing wit and talent and leadership, and because of the fact that we have had the opportunity as CCAT leaders to be part of Ari's podcast, Made in America by Ari Santiago, he is the MC extraordinaire. So that's why we've called Ari to the table today to help guide this conversation. So I wanted to express my gratitude to this moment taking place because I'm very, very excited. And we want to have a really engaging and inspiring conversation. So for right now, I'll turn to Ari and say, take it away.
Thank you, Jackie. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Really my pleasure to be here, be back at the CCAT Advanced Technology Center, and also be able to get to see all of you. So the goal, I think, for today is to really help you guys see a broader perspective for what advanced manufacturing really is and can be. Hopefully to inspire you, to generate a little more curiosity, and help you see what is possible, what can be possible in manufacturing. Hopefully inspire you not just for the summer, but also for beyond the summer. So really, we're here to help you. We'll do a couple of intros. I'll let Tony talk. Jackie doesn't like to talk about herself, but she's as impressive as anybody on this panel for sure. So we'll have an opportunity to introduce herself. But before we do kind of a little deeper intros, I just wonder, as you guys are sitting here, I have no idea what preparation you've been given for this event whatsoever. But I wonder, do you guys have any thoughts right now of anything based on what you know is happening or what we're going to be talking about or might be talking about that you'd like to get out of the hour that we have together? Any questions you want to have answered? Anything in particular? So I'll just pause and look around and see if anyone wants to share something.
We put no plants in the audience, so this will just be a very organic spitfire.
I mean, plants are technically organic. All right, well, you're leaving it up to me, so you're going to get what you get, and you're going to love it. All right, so I'll do some quick intros. So thank you. Jackie did mention that I host a podcast called Made in America with Ari Santiago. It's been around 2020, 2019, I think. So there were 7 years going by very quickly. And I'll just give you a quick little genesis of how the podcast came to be, because I think it's relevant to this conversation. So I haven't directly worked in manufacturing. I've had the pleasure of supporting manufacturers, and over the last 7 years, getting to know a lot more about it. But I grew up in Connecticut and driving around my whole life. As a kid, I grew up sort of teenage and high school, college years in like the 1990s, which probably seems like a million years ago to you guys. And driving around during those times in that period, manufacturing wasn't talked about as a great career. In fact, it was talked about as something that wasn't going to be here for very much longer. And it was all about you should go into finance or become a lawyer or a doctor or, God forbid, an accountant. No disrespect to any accountants out there. We need you, just don't want to be you. And so I ended up going into IT. And I ended up starting an IT business, which I've now sold twice and just recently retired, or at least for now. So that's been very great, very successful. But I do often think that had I been coached and educated more about what advanced manufacturing was and what it could be, the impact that you could make, and what you could do in advanced manufacturing, I think I would have done that. I, over the course of my IT career, started to meet manufacturers that were looking for IT support. And through that process, I found out, oh wow, there's like a thriving manufacturing ecosystem. It doesn't look like it looked in the 1970s, thank God, or the 60s or the 50s or anything before that. But they needed more and more IT. And so through that lens, I got more involved in manufacturing and came to find out one of the biggest challenges manufacturers had was kids, young adults didn't know about the powerful careers you could have in manufacturing. And so the human capital, the talent they needed to continue to grow and innovate their businesses was missing. And so I ended up starting a podcast to help educate, first of all, the community in the state and the country, like what manufacturing can be in the United States of America, how interesting it can be to work in it, how varied and different that it truly is, and how new and high-tech it is. And I think nothing could help illustrate that better than, it used to be a Fireside chat, and now it's a technology, talent, training, and transformation chat. But nothing would help us clarify that more than really talking to Jackie and Tony. And I'll let them introduce themselves, but Jackie and Tony come at this from different backgrounds, different perspectives, different life experiences, different years in the field. But what absolutely unites them and me is a passion for what manufacturing can be, and just an awe of the just utter coolness that can be there. So, Jackie, why don't you give us your story, and then we'll flip into Tom.
Thanks. So, I'm first gen. How many of you come from a lineage of scientists or engineers or technologists? How many of you are, when I say first generation, no one in my family went to college. So is that any of the case for any of you all? Are you really paving the way for your families? Kudos, right? All right, fist pumps. This is really awesome. It's so critical to recognize that and to know to build, your path through people that will help guide you, right? Because your parents and guardians and folks in your family might think, what are you doing? And that was certainly the case for me, being first gen. My family is really blue collar, and manufacturing, technology, engineering was never even a thing, right? I come from a lineage of carpenters and secretaries and legal admins, paralegals, etc. So I had the aspiration to go to college and study physics, of all things, because I wanted that foundational understanding of the science, because I wanted to be an astronaut, I wanted to go work for NASA or be an astrophysicist, and because of the opportunities that were presented to me very early on, I had the ability to do research. So for me, I'm an experimentalist by training. Computation was way over my head, and so really getting my hands dirty, which is similarly to manufacturing, of making things. But I was, studying really small things. So being wanting to aspire to be an astrophysicist, and then going way orders of magnitude on the opposite side of the spectrum to then work on nanomaterials and microns, things that are smaller than a strand of your hair, right? So I fell in love with that, and that really helped me, catalyze my journey through, as well, having a woman professor who I could see, right? You want to be able to see them through them. So for those of you that are paving your way, charting your own course, kudos, because there's people that are around you that are looking to you. I went on to grad school. I got a PhD in material science and engineering from UConn. So ironically, Connecticut native, never left the state of Connecticut. And I started my career actually across the parking lot here on campus at the research center of what was United Technologies, now it's RTX. And then I had the amazing opportunity to come here to CCAT 4 years ago. So the irony is I've never really left this campus apart from doing a stint in headquarters down in Farmington when UTC was there. So my journey has been, I would say frictionless, to the point that I've had some really great people guide me along my way, but then also bringing others along. That's really important. So that's why we have these forums and trying to make sure that you feel as though you have the arms around you to say, we're going to guide you through your career. So first gen all the way now to being in tech and manufacturing. Bright shiny research centers to now working in very closely with manufacturers across the state.
Do you remember the first time that you were working on something, making was something where the light bulb clicked and you sort of felt like you fell in love?
When I could, two things come to mind. When I was making, samples, right? Like working on really small things, using your hands. Like automation didn't really exist. Like this is all manual labor. I was fortunate enough to not necessarily to develop film for taking the images on the electron microscopes that I was working with at the time, but just seeing the structure of columns of atoms, right? Like everything is made up of atoms, and that to me was like, said we're gonna keep it cool here, so like that was really cool. That was really amazing. The more so in my professional career, working on some carbide seals that were blistering at the time. They had some abnormalities when I was over at the research center. The ultimate product there was for carrier, so carrier HVAC cooling with a trucking. So I was driving on the highway and said, oh my God, like I'm working on something that's such a small subset of a greater assembly, of a greater product of a vehicle that's keeping whatever the thing is air cooled. So for me, that was being a scientist in me, or even in any role when you're just a small piece of it, seeing that bigger picture really in present day is really an aha moment, I think.
Yeah, when you see like where you are in the fabric and how that actually impacts something in your life. I think that's going to come up again. Tony. So Tony Cacace is a legend in our minds, if not in his. But Tony, can you just give us your background? You started a little bit before the rest of us.
Yes, I did. Honored to be with Jackie. They are legends still. I just was very lucky. I see myself in these chairs. I graduated from NYU, and then I went to Columbia for my master's, but I knew nothing. I thought I did. I thought I was brilliant until I came to Pratt, and I was in a group like this, and I was all the way in the nosebleed section, and a guy named Kelly Johnson, look him up. He was going to develop a fast plane. He started the skunk works for Lockheed Martin, and he said, they asked him, the front row was a bunch of senior execs, they asked him, Kelly, what do you really need for thrust? I'm going to give you the framework. 18,000 miles of thrust was the limit at the time. Nobody ever saw anything above that. And he says 80,000 miles of thrust. But being a stupid young kid, I'm all the way in the nosebleed section, I'm smiling. And he looks up and he says, he's on the team, come on down. And I had the greatest experience of all. He taught me how to look beyond what was actually capable. And you have to learn to do that. As a group of engineers, as a group of machinists, you got to look beyond the realm of what's capable. You're the new Centurions. You're the guys that are going to change the business. I mean, I'm excited about what you're going to be presenting. I'm envious because I wish I had started all over again. But today you've got tools like AI, technology, and Ari has done a lot with IT. I mean, IT creates the environment, whether you like to admit it or not, that we work in. And it tailors the technology too. It comes in. You got to look beyond the limits, beyond the laws of physics, and you got to look at what's possible. And every time you look at something different, you got to be able to say, I have 36 pounds. How does that happen? I was taught by Kelly Johnson, if it's unique and you think it's a wow moment, patent it. And patent it with CCAT. This is a gift, CCAT. I mean, no other state has this. We got an environment here, there's a learning environment, but it's also a trial and error. You can come to Jackie with a conceptual idea, and they might be able to help you through it. And there's all kinds of new technologies that are coming in. Inventing is important. This state is known for that. I came out of New York and I went to the state of Connecticut because of Pratt. It came about. And when I look at what Connecticut has developed, I mean, everything from the cotton gin to the revolver. I mean, everything that was invented in history, a lot of it started in this state. It's a small state, but we have brilliant people. And you're the new Centurions. You're going to take the banner and run with it. Don't let a ceiling come in the way.
Tony, we're closing. We're just starting. Getting them all pumped. We haven't even started yet. So look, and I do think your journey is really important, Tony, because you started as an intern. You started early and young. And to your point, I think you've told me this story many times. It's all just repeated briefly. I'm going to send it back to you. Is that the gregarious, engaged, lean in Tony isn't where it started. Tony started sitting in the back, like many of us do, right? When we start something new, kind of afraid, a little like timid. I don't know if I want to jump in there or not jump in. But I think what Tony's life story has shown, and what we'll continue to touch on, is leaning in and trying new things is absolutely critical, and that's what you can do inside of an advanced manufacturing experience. So circling back around, so after Pratt, where'd you go?
After Pratt, I was 38 years there, but I started a magic shop at Pratt, only because I was working with the research center, and I used to go there and talk to people like this young doctor, get ideas, and try to apply them. So I said, they're developing some great technologies, but we have to apply them. And that's where you folks come in. Look at the technology and see how we incorporate it into our industry. After that, I wound up developing with GKN. A British guy comes to my door, knocks on my door. I've been in as a retiree. I said to him, he says, we want you to work for us. His name was Sir Kevin Smith. Didn't know why he came to my house, but he says, I want you to work for us. And I said, I come from a company steeped in tradition. Right away, we're 82 years old at the time. He was 260 years old. I looked over at my wife, and I said, do you want me to start? Why don't we do this? So I signed up, and it was a great run. And I had great people working for me. That's important, to associate yourself with great people. We have one individual that worked with me for a long time, and he's here right now. Anyway, I had wacky ideas. I wanted to make the front end of the joint structure out of composite. Pratt thought I was crazy, and my own team kind of questioned my legitimacy. Well, we designed a tool, and we made the front end of the joint structure. And it's made in Cromwell, small. We started with 5 guys. They're at 250 people right now. And the success wasn't mine, it was people. You surround yourself with the right people, you work hard. I never went to work. And you never want to go to work just to go to work. You want to be excited about what you're doing, recognize what you can change, and feel good about it. Not provide, but in your own heart say, I made a difference. They're doing that now. And that's where you got to go. From there, I wound up consulting too with I have 36 patents, and I have a lot of things that I see that will happen. It's a great experience.
So when you think back to that long career, you've been pulled out of retirement several times. What are you most proud of, or what do you look back at and think about, and just proud that you participated in?
I was proud of the JSF because we built the front end out of composites, and we created a technology that didn't exist. I mean, it thinks before people understood composites could be wired, composites could be anti-ice, but my biggest success for people, watching a group of engineers that are moving the needle and really moving it forward. When I talk to you guys, a couple of years, I give my phone number to them. I'll pay for that.
Yeah, that's how you get pulled out of retirement. By the way, Tony's 80 years old, so yeah.
I'm old enough to be a grandfather, so I just want to let you know that. And it's sad that none of my family, they must have looked at me and said, I don't want to win the business. They went into medicine, but they do good too.
So what was it about creating this composite front end of the joint strike fighter? What inspired you to do it? Why did it need to happen? How did you know it needed to happen?
Well, I looked at the center of gravity of the plane. They have problems with that, and it was an aviation week. But the real issue was I've always wanted to put a component on an aircraft engine. It was fully composite. They let us do acoustics. They always kept us out of the realm of the center of the engine. This was a challenge, and I had Steve Hayes with me. Hi, Steve. He's in the back someplace.
Still rolling around.
Okay. Steve Hayes was one of my senior guys, and he believed in what I was thinking. And we had this thing we developed, and we wanted to make sure, because it held the engine to the airplane, there was a lot of risk. I mean, we took a leap in faith. But what I said is that I'm going to put 2 million pounds of resin pressure in this thing. And when I said that, everybody got scared. I didn't contain all that. So I went to the Buffett boiler. It's great to have friends, the industry.
Yeah, so I think that was really what I was trying to drive with this is, when you think about what you're doing in your internships, and you think about what you're trying to do, making connections with other people is going to be the most important thing. You're going to get assigned to some project or projects. You're going to be doing some items. But one of the things I've always learned from talking to Tony from my own life, and I think Jackie will reinforce this, is that it's the relationship that you can build with other people that's ultimately going to be the most valuable thing. It's where you'll learn. It's where when you get stuck and you don't know how to make that resin thing work, who are you going to call? It's when you're thinking about a career decision, what's a mentor you can build in the organization? I think everybody here is at a small or medium-sized manufacturer, is that correct?
Yes. How many of you are in your first internship experience? Okay.
Is that pretty much stuff? Okay.
Majority of that.
First internship at anything? Wow. That's interesting. Did you enter?
I never did an internship, so I did research experiences for undergrads. And Taylor reached out to me earlier and before this, event. And for me, being a research scientist, like there's a difference of paths, very similar and synergistic. But I never really hit industry until after graduate school, when I was over at United Technologies. So an internship is more so being thrust into a company, manufacturing, production, you're all of it.
Getting your hands dirty.
Getting your hands dirty, yes.
That's the way to learn.
Yes.
So when you think about sort of what you've done, Jack, and you think back, what are some of the things that you think are the coolest stuff you worked on, stuff that you're the most proud of?
Something that I'm the most proud of, I think, goes also back to people, and because you can't do anything solo, it all takes a team. And when you think about, even my work throughout my career, when people would ask me this question, it would be, what's in that moment of time? And over the last most of my career, I've always been part of a team that was, putting in patents or creating new innovation to then try to sell off to Pratt and Whitney. So, you're trying to make sure that it's. I've always had more of a next generation lens, like future outward facing of like 10 years. Not necessarily in the moment where for advanced manufacturing, companies like are, pumping out products, and it's just such the timeline is just so much more present. For something that I'm most proud of, it's been, the person at the helm of like securing an award, right? Like that to me took me 10 plus to almost 10 years over at the research center, a big, large organization, working on many teams throughout my tenure there, to then coming to CCAT and landing a federal contract that took us a couple of years to, from the ideation to fighting for it to, winning over to going out for a competitive bid, and it was all a team effort, but my name was on there. So for me, that like meant the world. Right, and now we can see that Colette had talked to you about our digital front lab and our talent training accelerator, And it was, technology facing, but really with a training upskilling lens to it. And for me, most recently, I think that was the, all right, this is like the big leagues, right?
I've actually done
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
really meaningful. Nothing quite like closing a deal.
Yeah, closing a deal.
Always feels good. So I think that really moves us to like a great part of the conversation, which I really wanted to lean into, which is like, what does the future look like? And something I know that they're both very passionate about. Tony, you started talking about it earlier. He's told me this many times, but that he would love to come back and start all over again, thinking about the tools that we have today to make things, to design things, to test things. You guys have been around CCAT, you may have seen some of the companies that you're working at, but the amount of stuff we could do today to take a model and test it and build it and rebuild it digitally and see what happens, I mean, that's new. I mean, before, you'd have to actually build it and like try and do something with it, maybe blow it up, which could be fun. But, that was a lot longer, right? It was a lot harder. Now you can do it more so. But I'll throw it to you first, Tony. If you think about a question.
I have a question for the right now, but if you could restart your career in today's world, what would you guys do?
Wow, that's a great question. So, I can repeat. Can I hold that? So I'm going to right next. That's an awesome question. I think just starting off with this question, which may be an overlap, but I don't think it is. When you think about today, the new technology, which one or two items excites you the most?
A portion of AI excites me, but really, Jackie excites me about the molecular things that do. I look back in my career, in 1968, there was a PhD woman, Mary Monk. She invented a material they called the waspin.
Okay.
Waspin. They named it after the wasp engine.
Okay.
And she never got credit for it. And it bothered me all my life. And she was older than I had a bigger find it. And it was emotional. Because this woman did a lot of research. And she's in the background. But she created waspin. So there's a lot of people that do wonderful things behind the scene. And a lot of us take credit for it.
Right.
Especially if you're around.
But if you think about like going forward, you touched on AI, I don't know if that's it, but what are the one or two technologies today that you didn't have before that you have now that are the most exciting?
Well, vision systems that we can actually take a blueprint, take a product, and see, balloon out a print digitally, and I can make a product. We digitize things, we can almost download it into a machine. It's going to cut years of work in the engineering field that will make it quicker. It's accelerating all the time, and I'm excited about that. And with AI and the cloud, you can touch a bunch of technologies all at once and assemble the thought process with that. And you could be wrong, but that's for a good engineer and a good person in the industry would have to be careful. It could be wrong. It always needs your eyes on it. And you got to be technically enough. I lived through a situation where they had an algorithm that said the compressor doesn't need all the stages of compression. And I talked to the head guy, and I said, he was a PhD, he was a good guy, but he says, the algorithm says this, Tony, take the stage out. And it went to test the engine, and it worked. But except a Delta Airline flight took off, and with a crosswind, the engine quits.
So I think you gotta, we don't want to go too deep into engine functionality, but you usually skipped over a few things that I don't think everyone fully understands. So an engine does what, and what do they tell you to take out?
They told me to take out a stage of the compression. There's 18 stages, they said you don't need them all. Because the algorithm produced, we had slide rules in my day, and we had a test.
Yours? So you were going to bring it up.
So having that technology, the ability to take a design, make it sort of real digitally, and test it out, that's the most exciting thing.
Using human reason to understand that You just can't do all that without having some logic.
Yeah, and I mean, you always talk about the humility of admitting your mistakes, and I think when you're building something, you've got to have the humility to understand this is part of science, right? You have a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, and we should be agnostic as to whether or not it comes out the way we thought for or against the hypothesis, right? It's not about being right, it's about getting to the right answer. And I think that's something that's always been really cool about science in my mind. So.
And I've gotten the wrong answer. I believe the first JT-11 that was going to power the SR-70.
Nobody was injured in the explosion of that engine.
Nobody was injured, but humiliation was on my part.
That happens. And Jackie, when you think about the technologies that you work with and see, or you help other companies, what excites you the most?
I think although automation and AI is really, we're staring at the face of it right now, and there's so much potential, and everything is changing so rapidly and quickly. It's a bit of a rat race to keep up. To Tony's point, I think not losing sight of the human element and the human intelligence, having that intersection between automation and robotics, and then also, when I think about, these are things that I'm not really doing research on, but a bit to Taylor's point of, what would it be that you would do is, we're all wearing smart devices, right? We have so much data that we're consuming in our lives, and how we then translate that into, advanced manufacturing and production. So for me, although I'm still a materials nerd at heart and want to, everything is relying on materials, right? Everything that every product, it goes back to the fundamentals, which is so critical. So, applying that to so many other things, because it's not just so segmented and siloed, because it's a new hot, sexy thing. So it's a bit of a nebulous answer, just because it's so vast. But to really dial that back, it's a matter of taking at the lens from your perspective, and putting that digital automation, AI lens to it, but not losing sight of the human in the loop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just answering, and I'll go back to this question. I'll ask myself the question. But I think what excites me the most when I look at where advanced manufacturing is how much of the mundane tasks we don't have to do anymore. And to me, that's the most exciting, because when I think about the future of anything, it's understanding what am I going to be able to do to make an impact. And I always look at any technology, whether, because I mean, you guys, a lot of items will have to have like level of inspection that's very high, which used to have to be manual. Now a lot of that can be automated and digitized to much greater effect. Different parts of the process that are mundane can be automated, which I think frees up time to be able to do more interesting stuff. So from my perspective, that's what excites me the most, is the ability to automate the mundane. I think your question, which is a good one, was if you're starting all over again, what would you do differently? So I'm going to throw that back. Jackie, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Tony. If you were starting at the beginning, maybe what would you do differently? Or that's maybe too hard to answer. What would you do now to take advantage of the beginning of a career? Maybe you did it, maybe you didn't, but either one of those I'll take the answer for. Is that okay? Might have to twist the question.
I studied physics and then material science and engineering. The path that I took was going through higher education and getting that degree. The beauty of where we sit today is that is still relevant, but not necessarily necessary. That was too repetitive, but
Do you want to make you try again?
What I would do differently several years ago, in the midst of thinking about sustainability and climate change, having the fundamental background of physics and then material sciences, it's so translational. So I think in trying to answer your question, you're not necessarily pigeonholed to one thing. Particularly across engineering disciplines, it's like I'm mechanical, I'm electrical, I'm civil, I'm materials, I'm comp sci. It's all now just so important to not necessarily cast all that aside, but recognize how valuable it is to be at all of those various different intersections. You know, coming up
So
to
would you,
reform
are you
is
saying you would have gone broader instead of deeper?
I thought about, do I need to, you know, go back and go into a different discipline? And I think the ways in which AI and access to information is really helping all of us. You don't necessarily need to be investing 10 years of your life to aspire to have that end goal. Because skills are transferable, and it's really just, and Jackie, what would you want to do, right? Like I thought about, you know, going into environmental engineering or, you know, switching different gears to study something on the complete opposite, you know, from what I was doing. But, you know, Tony's example of his life is, you know, there's such a vast, there's a vastness to what we're all exposed to, and you don't necessarily have to, you know, really only like do one thing.
Be open to more items,
Yeah,
be broader, and not feel the need to go back and go deeper to study on everything?
I think so. That's a bit of the message that I want to convey, because to myself, like I feel as though like there's many like smaller things like life hacks and like micro learning, you know, YouTube. Like y'all are lucky, because I can't even imagine what this gentleman had to go through, and even Ari, you and I growing up, of how to access information. So it's, you know, I think starting off on your trajectory, but knowing that you might need to take some pivots just to get access to information, which is much more easy for all of you. It's steer me right.
Hang on,
Summarize.
What would you do different? What would you do differently in the beginning, or maybe better said, what would you do if you were starting now?
Now, it's amazing, because think of what I had to go through. I had to take a subway and a bus to go to the New York Public Library to do a paper. I mean, I used to go, my Saturdays with traveling to the New York Public Library from Harlem. I was brought up in Harlem. So I had and that was normal for me. Nowadays, it's all on your fingertips. I mean, you got it in your pocket, the information, but you got it.
So what would you do with that power?
I would take advantage of that and investigate some new technologies that would help human life. My brother's a neurosurgeon, but he asked me for ideas on tooling. I would apply some of my ideas to this place.
But you learned a lot of that through your career. If you were like an intern today, and you were just getting your career going, what would you do to get your career on the best right foot?
I would do practical stuff.
Yeah.
Just like Jackie said. You know, I've got a master's degree in engineering from Columbia, and I thought I was brilliant until I was hit between the eyes by Kelly Johnson.
Yeah, by reality.
By reality. Until I learned. You're going to get more practical experience on your internship.
Yeah.
The thing that we do wrong is Germans have a technique that I really appreciate. They split time. You go to school half the time, and the other half you go into an internship. You get a lab coat that has a company logo and a school logo. And you learn. And you're not only learning for yourself, you're teaching the professor.
Yeah.
You know, the professors are in a vacuum.
Yeah.
They're teaching you. They're not out in the industry.
Yeah.
They'll learn more by coming out to the industry more. And they don't, because it's practical. It's math, physics, you know, sciences.
I agree. You I think hit on the biggest thing, which is you guys are already doing it. Which is get out there and get some real world experience. I think too often, and I don't know if this has changed more broadly or if you guys are different than most of your peers, but I think, you know, my age, when Jackie was doing it, even when Tony was doing it, it was really like go study, do all your studying. If you're going to go to an advanced degree, get all that, stack all your creds, and then kind of go into into industry, whatever that industry was. And it can be like a huge mistake because you may be in the wrong place, you may not understand how to apply it. And to Tony's point, worst case scenario, you have all these PhDs, you have all this bravado, but you don't know anything. The book doesn't teach you a lot, so I think, it was something I did right by accident, but was work quick. Get into industry, get into business, do what you want to do, don't be afraid to follow. And so I think if I was going to answer the question, I would say it feels, I think, in your late teens, early 20s, like going through college, at least for me, it felt like a huge, monumental decision of like what I was doing. And I had gone on a path to be a lawyer. And I was 3.5 years through my undergrad degree when I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer at all. At all. And I quit. Or I moved on. I don't know. My dad always says we're not quitters, so I guess I'm not a quitter. But I left to go follow my passion and do something else. But here's the thing. When you're 21 years old, there's almost no career mistake you can make that you can't undo. I could have always gone back to finish my undergrad degree. I could always go to law school. But I just had a bigger passion for technology. And I went to follow that passion, and I think that really dovetails into exactly what Jackie and Tony were saying, which is get some real-world experience. Don't get yourself pigeonholed into feeling like, I don't have enough. I don't have enough education. I don't have enough experience to try this. I have to go down this path. Or I committed to do something, and I want to change, but I got to see this whole thing through. I'm not saying you want to be someone that changes their mind every 3 or 6 months. That's not what I'm saying. But follow your passion that you want to do and try it out. Because you can always go back and redo that question.
I actually have a question for Tony.
Please.
So how old were you when you received your first patents, and what was that whole experience like?
Did everyone hear the question?
He said, how old was I when I received my first patent? I think it was 32. But I had the greatest experience of my life when I had 4 high school kids working for Grace CMT, and they had a patent. They invented a pull-down press. They had an idea because they were tired about looking at this big press that we had. They were going to rebuild it, and these 4 young kids came up in high school saying, why can't we have double plates and have hydraulics? Then it would change the cylinder.
What year was that?
This was about 4 or 5 years ago. And these 4 kids applied for a patent. And first I said, I don't think it's patentable. So I checked with the patent office, I got a lawyer, and they said, they can't find anything on it. So it was a first, and they got a patent. They got this plaque on the wall. These are high school kids. They were juniors in high school. HK and not varsity, the other high school. And they got a patent for kids.
So half his age, and they just helped patent to be pressed in 2020.
And like Polo and CCAT helped with getting it together. And CCAT's an incubator too. If you get an idea, a wow idea, don't cast it aside. Because what happens is you have ideas. You have ideas in your head all the time. You look at everything daily, and you say, why did they do it that way? Why don't we try it different? That's what Connecticut does too. And that's what you guys have, that gene in you that says we can do it. And try something different. And see if it works. And it's patentable.
Yeah, that'll be a big difference, right, between your success, or how far you can take your success, which is how willing you are to see something and be willing to step up and say, hey, I think we can do this better.
That was a big deal that we get the patent.
Yeah, and by the way, ACMT, where he works, it's another small, mid-sized manufacturer. Right? It's not, you don't have to be, working at Northrop Grumman or RTX or whatever to come up with something new. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Please.
all three of you guys mentioned that at the time a lot of people were kind of steering you away from going into engineering or IT or physics. And I understood also you were the first person in your family to go to college. What really pushed you guys to pursue that instead of going into blue collar or something like that?
Well, I'll answer last. So I'll start with you, Tony. So what got you to go into engineering and all that despite?
Well, in my family, I was the first to graduate college student. Well, my father was in the submarine service during World War II. And he had some great ideas that I found out at his funeral. It was really sad. He invented a press that could put seals in the back of a submarine. They used to take a submarine during the war and dry dock it because of the leak down the shaft in the back of the submarine. So he said, let's do it internally. So he wanted to go from ship to ship. And these three old timers were there, and they told me the story. So I looked at him, he could have been an engineer, but he was a good mechanic, and he had all kinds of ideas. This is a flash of greatness. We all get it. When you look at something, you look at it and say, I can do that better. That's the patentable idea, or that's the new trend. And you can start a company on it. There are companies in Connecticut that started that way. It's incredible.
What pushed you, Jackie, to buck the trend of your family and go into science?
Having an initial passion for something, that started quite early on. I also too thought I was going to be a lawyer, and then I didn't even go to pursue that because through high school I kind of changed course and figured out like I really love the cosmos and I wanted to study. I still have a dream to work for NASA or like to be up there, even if it's sending my ashes, up to interstellar space. I came up through a generation where it was kind of ingrained in us, like you shall go to college. Like that was coming up through the late 90s, 2000s. So it's, to Ari's point he made earlier, it's a different era. We're in a different generation. I've had the opportunity to work with folks like yourselves that are coming into large corporations, and that was even 5 years ago. So the world has changed, right? We recognize now that you can find success in jumping more so into industry rather than filling out a higher degree. Some of you may be at two-year institutions at community colleges, and that could be your catalyst and stepping stone into a really great career because you marry your higher education degree with industry experience, and sometimes they equalize out. So I think from what we've heard from my friends here, it's following your passion, even if it's staying the course and then finding those pivotal moments in your life where you want to maybe change course or navigate through. But the world is such now that it's encouraged for individuals to really choose your own adventure. Like that's something that is not part of my vintage for sure.
It's different. To answer your question, I think happened by accident a little bit. My parents did it to themselves. In the fact that, so I was in a skiing accident when I was almost 14, I was paralyzed. And that's when I got introduced to computers while I was rehabbing. Turns out that I had an aptitude for them. And then my parents also didn't believe in allowance. So I had to learn how to make money. And prior to my accident, I used to do caddying at the golf club or mow lawns, which I couldn't do anymore. And my mom's like, why don't you see about teaching people how to use computers or whatever. And I did not like teaching, but then I started building and selling computers because we could do that in the early 90s. And that kind of led to all the stuff. And outside of trying to go be a lawyer and be like, Dad, I don't want to do that, I just sort of had that spirit. And I think they always encouraged me to go and learn. So they would, encourage me to do whatever I wanted. If I wanted to do the mock trial team, which I did, go do that. If I wanted to be class president, go do that. So they were really supportive of whatever it is that I wanted to do, and then kind of introduced me to this passion, and I just sort of followed it. So I think, I don't know if that answers the question very directly. I hope that I can do that for my kids, help them see what they want to see. Question?
Yeah, this was for all three of you, or anyone wants to answer, but looking back at your time as an intern, or a new employee, or being the guy in the back, what are your biggest regrets? Like, what opportunities do you wish you jumped on, and what should we be doing as interns that our companies and telling us to do? Like, what things should we be doing to make those happen?
I'll jump on first, and then if any of you guys want to go, so I'll do. So I have a different answer. Well, I'll answer it differently. You said, what didn't I do? For whatever reason, I did what I did do, and I think I would do again, so I'll tell you that. And it's a little bit, I think, what Tony was saying earlier, so I really resonated with that. I just spoke my mind. And when I saw something, not in a rude way, and not sort of shouting things out, but when I saw something that wasn't working, that not that I would just go around pointing out problems, when I saw something that wasn't working, that I thought I could do better than, I would go to the person that was leading me, and I said, hey, so I remember the first time I worked in business was at IT department in Robinson Cole, which is a law firm, and I remember we saw something wasn't working, and I just went to the head of the department, and I was like, hey, his name is Fred, and I was saying, hey, Fred, I have this idea, this is what I'd like to do, this I think the benefit, and maybe it's through luck, maybe it's because people always want help when you offer it. He was like, yeah, go do it, and that was successful. And then my first time I worked somewhere else, and I saw something, I just did the same thing. And I always took on those challenges and those opportunities, and I put in the work. So, when I was like much younger, I worked extra hours, I put in extra time. Look, I had fun too, don't get me wrong. But I took the opportunity when I didn't have kids, when I had a lot of energy, to put in the extra time and be the person who made things better. And my experience is that person always gets rewarded.
I agree. I look at enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is important. True enthusiasm means that you're really interested in what we're doing, and you want to change it. And change is good. Change agents will show up. Don't do status quo because everybody tells you, even if your boss tells you that, look for a better way of doing something and follow your dream, even on this particular project. And I was criticized. I was fired 3 times on United Technologies. And the same guy came to my house and rehired me. And I blew up an engine. I put a ceramic matrix part into a jet engine without his approval. It's an $18 million engine, and I could sacrifice that engine. I did. It worked well. He still was suspicious of it. And
Some of these are definitely details of what not to do, even though it worked out,
But you have to try it. Push the envelope all the time. Don't put yourself in a box because we all do it this way.
Would you agree that at some point, if you're in a place where your enthusiasm keeps getting tamped down and they don't want to hear your ideas, it's time to move on?
Yes.
Don't get stuck in a rut.
No.
Life is way too short. Any other quote? Did you ever do that?
Yeah, this one's a little bit complex. Kind of touched on this a little bit about the American workforce keeping up. It doesn't, with an ever-growing manufacturing industry and with the implementation of advanced technology, the 4-year degree model doesn't seem to be able to sustain the fundamentals along with anything that's added to it. I asked if there's any future advancement in safeguards to keep students informed while things evolve, as well as the American workforce not being left behind.
So are you at, I guess, it sounds like there's a little bit around saying the 4-year education model gets outdated because changes move too fast?
Because more gets added to it.
What do you mean by more?
So requirements to be employed in the manufacturing or mechanical engineering space requires more knowledge as things develop more. And so is the 4-year model then going to expand? Because if it's already...
It's going to take too long for the 4-year model to expand. So I think what you've heard from, the folks here, you're doing exactly that. You're taking the right steps of having a real world, tangible experience in a manufacturing company. That experience is going to serve you well, layered on with going out and onto the internet, onto YouTube, studying things that are relevant to your job at the time, asking questions, being visible. Kind of getting back to your question as well, sir. The message that we're conveying to students like yourselves is that, and Ari touched on this before, it's like being book smart, right? You can only study so much, but it needs to keep up with where we are as far as the advancements in technology and really the seat in which you're sitting in whatever your experience is, right? You all have many more summers and many more work study experiences. If you could fit it into your academic studies, take as much of those opportunities as possible, because not only will it give you additional skills and real world application, it also creates those connections to people that will help guide you along your way. So networking and mentorship, upskilling, understanding, making the investments in the time, because I don't want to sound too negative here, but really at the end of the day, your degree is a piece of paper, and it gets you to that first, stepping stone, but then you have to literally prove yourself. I've heard people say that you need to earn your stripes. You need to do this, that, and the other thing. And again, that's antiquated information because that was from several years ago. Take advantage of all the access to information and to the people that you have, because the 2-year degree or 4-year degree or even going further down the pipe, it's all about what you're passionate of, because you will find and navigate through to where your first endpoint will be, but then there's many of those, endpoints along the way. So, trying to, there's a bit of frustration that you can feel because you feel like you're just, packing on so much as far as the traditional academics, but there's so much, access and resources that y'all have. So you're doing the right thing. Even though it might not feel it in the moment, but you're taking those initial steps, and it's just going to continue to compound.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we can speak very eloquently or factually around the future of education in terms of what 4-year degrees look like. But I do think that there is a lot you can get from just a basic 4-year degree and just in the process of studying and learning, that does actually help. But I think, to Jackie's point, and even Tony said it earlier, you can't stop there. And there's so many opportunities to do bits of micro learning, whether it's podcasts or YouTube video channels or whatever, that you can take on more. And then real world, what's out there is super important. So I think, I'll just repeat that. She said you're doing the right stuff. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
Yeah. Thank you.
The other thing I think related to that is challenging professors. They're not always right, by the way. I mean, you go back with ideas from the industry, take it back to them in a nice way, because you don't want to get an F. I managed to do that once. But if you want to go back and talk about what you've learned and share it with the rest of the class. Because teaming is important too. Learning how to work collaboratively with everybody. But teaching the professional, this is great, this laws of physics, but these are the applications that I see. So this is how I apply it. And applying the science is so critical. Learning how to do that is really critical.
question here.
Yeah.
We're running a little bit over, so I need or somebody flag me when I'm not too far.
Going back to the whole AI and automation topic, given the rapidly changing manufacturing and engineering industries, what specific emerging jobs or fields do you guys recommend that we be on the lookout for new career? And are they offered here at CCAT?
But at CCAT specifically,
Can you repeat that?
yeah, oh, sorry. So the question was, given the rapidly changing environment, AI and so on, and other stuff, what jobs would we recommend you look out for? What positions would be out there? What are the trends to keep present?
Like new emerging jobs.
What new emerging jobs would be out there? I can jump on it if you want. Well, I would just say that. So I'm more of a improving or enhancing the way jobs that are currently being done are being done. I find that a lot more interesting. Because they're absolutely, so let me give you an example. There are people out there that already do process engineering. right? So look at a process. It could be a process to make something, or paper process, right? A business process. And those process engineers are now going to have to learn new ways to automate or enhance those processes, right? So when you think about like a lean journey, you're going to need new tools. So I actually would say I would encourage more about spending some time with what technologies, what IT technology, this is my pet, but what IT technology is out there, and kind of getting exposure around that, because I think you can apply that inside of the other job, as opposed to being the other job itself. I mean, there are AI engineers and stuff like that, but those personally to me aren't as interesting as the application.
They teach digital thread here. That ties in a lot of the technologies that bring a feature life. I mean, the ultimate thing is how quick can I get this feature in this product and enhance it? I mean, you want to do that digitally. Just like Ari said, and he's the guy that handles the digits. And I love him for it because I watched him speak on it, and he sold some good software, it helped, and it moves the industry forward.
I was just thinking with this is that I think if you think about how to be useful, it's all about how can I have the most tools in my toolbox, and then once you start figuring out where you want to be, like digging into enhance those. That's what I
And don't let money drive you.
No.
I've seen guys run
It doesn't hurt.
executive jobs that they literally hate. I've watched a graduate from Brooklyn Polytech. We started together at Pratt, and he was interested in the ladder, climbing the ladder. He got to be an executive vice president, and he had a nervous breakdown because he was so anxious to get ahead, while I was just coasting and enjoying what I was doing. So, enjoy what you do.
Well, I think we'll start to wrap it on that. Enjoy what you do is a great message. Thank you guys so much for coming, for being so attentive, for asking great questions, for listening, and most importantly, for taking the step to get out there in the world and where you maybe could be spending your summer gallivanting or relaxing. You're actually investing your time to learn and make yourself better. These are the types of things that pay long-term dividends over time. So you'll really be there. And I'm going to end it on what Tony said, which is what's most important when you look back on your life as you go through it is going to be, did you enjoy? And you enjoy by feeling like you contribute. And so just make sure you put yourself in a position to contribute, and everything else will fall into place. So thank you all very much.
Amazing. Jackie, I don't know if you want to wrap with anything.
So I will just say that we're not going to keep you out, right? So we'll hang around for just a little bit because there might be some burning questions. This is really just the start of your summer experience, and with Eileen at the helm of this program and many of the other CCAT team members leading the charge, we're invested in you all as well. So please lean on each other, lean on us. We look forward to having the opportunity to show you more about advanced manufacturing across the state of Connecticut and connecting you to your peers and to other leaders so that way you can keep being curious, asking the right questions, and helping each other along this path. And so for those of you that are first-time interns, welcome aboard. This is going to be a crazy summer for you all. Those of you that have had these internship experiences before, reach out to each other and lean on each other for those experiences, and we hope that you come back, right? This is just the start, but the intention is to show you how amazing manufacturing in the state of Connecticut is, and we want you to stick around and be with us for a long time because you have so much to contribute. So thank you so much to Eileen, our team, to Tony and Ari for spending the evening with us.